Okay, good morning, everyone. Friday morning, Dhamma reflection and the Q&A opportunity to begin the morning with the Dhamma. And so I'll begin with a bit of a reflection. One of the things that say continuing my own, because oftentimes I like just reflecting on Dhamma or talking Dhamma, giving Dhamma teachings. It's almost invariably just me kind of reflecting out loud what's going on in my own mind or what I'm considering, so that so the Tuesday night Dhamma talk was around the divine messengers, old age, sickness, death, and one of the things, as it continued to kind of resonate or reflect on it, then one of the things that came up was another aspect. Of course, the Buddha emphasized that over and over again, and but one of the things that came up in my mind was another theme that the Buddha puts a lot of attention on, is the aspect of the reflecting on the drawbacks of things, as well as the benefits of things, and the way out, the escape, so that the asada is like the benefits, adinava is the drawbacks, and the patisarana is the way out, the escape.
Nisarana.
So nisarana is the escape, and that it's important to reflect, because as I say, we're reflecting on the on the nature of the body, or just on the nature of existence, and on the nature of any experience. Oftentimes how we perceive it is almost invariably through the lens of our preference, or our particular bias that we have, and that's that's never very reliable, and we can either be elated or depressed depending on the particular bias or preference, and so that but to reflect in terms of Dhamma is to really reflect in terms of, okay, this is what I'm experiencing, but then what could be the benefit, what could be the plus side, what could be the aspect that it could be turned to goodness or to growth in some way. And then similarly, the reflecting on the drawback, the the limitation, an unpleasant aspect of something, but then also to be reflecting on the escape, on the way out, the release, and that's always the release is always the relinquishing of desire and clinging and attachment and entanglement, so that to be just considering in terms of okay, there is this we are in this condition of being born, aging, sickness, death, and it can be uncomfortable. It can be intimidating. It can be unpleasant at times, and to say, yeah, that's very real, and particularly in a time of a global pandemic, and say, well, okay, yeah, there's real limitation and drawback to the and just this physical existence, whether it's individually or as a society. But then, if you start expanding it out and reflecting on the benefit, or how to turn it so that one can pay attention to the benefit. And of course, the benefit is always, we have the opportunity to really reflect and understand the kind of the true nature of things, and then also the opportunity to draw close to people who are seeking ways of living that are really beneficial, that are based in in generosity and in integrity and kindness, and realize, well, that's what's important to me. This is really, and to be recognized that there's always going to be people like that. It's like similar to when Ajahn Sumedho, as a young monk, was asked by Ajahn Chah if he would ever go back to America to live as a monk and set up a monastery. And Ajahn Sumedho's response was very negative. No, we'd never be able to live in America. They would starve to death. They don't know what monks are. They don't know what Buddhism is, and Ajahn Chah's kind of response, he had this very sort of concerned look on his face, and he said, "You mean to say there's no good people in America?" And it's just that it's not sort of, well, how many card-carrying Buddhists are there? How many institutions are there that are about Buddhism? It's more, no, are there good people? And you realize, yeah, there's, wherever you are, there's going to be good people, and there's going to be not so good people, and you have to pay attention to how to avoid those who aren't good people, but to draw close to the good, draw close to the wholesome, draw close to the skillful, and that's a benefit that we can have, and it's that being in this physical existence in the same way of like our feelings and our thoughts, other people's feelings and thoughts, where there's the whole range, but to be able to draw close to the skillful, the good, and that's a choice that we can be making all the time. And as we do that, and you start to recognize, well, again, reflecting on the nature of, it's the nature of good and evil. It's an endless kind of cycle, and I mean, one doesn't have to go very far to see that within oneself. There's where our moods, our perceptions, our feelings are kind of tumbling around with that mix of kind of happy and sad, kind of noble, ignoble, um, generous and selfish, and all that whole range, and there is that mix, so that it isn't that way sort of kind of annihilate the the evil and be able to isolate and hang on to the good. It's that's not possible. But we can see things really clearly and see the nature of desire, attachment, clinging, and we can relinquish that. The identification with our own body, identification with the different elements of our being, and that constant creating of a sense of self that gets entangled. And whether it's entangled in really good and positive and wholesome ways, or it gets entangled in in things that are really unskillful and unprofitable, but it's still entangled. So that sense of being able to, and that's where I think one of the of that constant movement and change and shifting, trying to negate, trying to prop up, trying to get rid of. So that the sense of escape, that is, or the way out, that is this kind of radical relinquishment and letting go. And of course, it centers around this the identification with self, of me, of mine. This is my my body. This is my mind. This is my world. Why is this world not complying with my wishes? And you put it, you articulate it, and of course it's incredibly stupid, but we don't articulate it. We just keep being driven by our biases and our habits. And that's what the Buddha gave this very striking image of the nature of being sort of the endless nature of samsara, of birth and death, of endless nature of the world, not just this world, all worlds, and we wander from realm to realm, and and he said it's like a dog that is tied to on a leash, and it's tied to a post that's firmly rooted in the ground, and that dog, when it runs and revolves wherever it moves, it runs and revolves around this post. So that runs and revolves around this post. So in the same way that as us as human beings, we run and revolve around this sense of identification with the five aggregates, the five aspects of being: body, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Everything keeps everything keeps revolving and moving around there, and we keep uh, um, we're stuck within that constant movement because of that identification with that sense of this body, feelings. This is me. This is what I am, and it's whether this is what I am, or I'm in this, or all the different permutations. Uh, that it's either possessed of the possessing it, or being inside it, or being outside of it. It's all of the it's all that identification and entanglement with these. So that's it runs and revolves around this identification, attachment, clinging to the five khandhas, so that it's the way, and it's the way out is not, and again, it's not an annihilation or a negation. It's just seeing it for what it is, and having this sense of kind of weariness, not, and again, not a that's not a negative state. The like the word that is used in Pali, nibbida, it's usually called disenchantment, kind of weariness, world weariness, nibbida. But it is extremely bright state because the mind is seeking release, and it's sort of like this incredible relief that, I don't have to run and revolve like a dog around tied on a leash, or just running around this post all the time. There's an opportunity for freedom. So that as we, the sense of our rooting our practice in reflection, investigation, establishing ourselves in the practices of sila, samadhi, panya, but to be considering, okay, what is where is the benefit, where is the plus side, and where is the drawback, where's the limitation, and seeing those things clearly, but then what is the release, what is the way out. So that's that's just for consideration this morning, reflection, and I'll leave it there and move on to the questions. First one is a question that came in email form last night, so that rather than typing out an email and sending it off, they go, okay, this is somebody who does follow these postings, and from, say, outside of America, from Israel, and here's the question. I've been on the path for many years now. My 3 nephews, 8, 9, 11 years old, boys, very inquisitive kids who like studying in general, want me to teach them about the Dhamma. I've already taught them how to meditate and told them the story of Gautama the Buddha and the idea of the Eightfold Path in brief. They want to hear some more. And the youngest, 8 years old, got really hooked on meditation. Meditates now both with me and on his own at home. And my question is, what is important to keep in mind when introducing the Dhamma to kids? I feel it's a great responsibility that I'm taking here, and I don't want to make any big mistake with these young and tender minds. Maybe I should note that their parents are not Buddhists. It's a secular Jewish family. My brother and his wife are very pleased that the boys learn how to meditate, get exposed to different worldview, but I'm not sure they would appreciate it if I say um, uh, they started to bow to a Buddha statue or talk about hell realms. So there are some boundaries I shouldn't cross, I suppose. Yeah, you don't want to be trying to because I think one of the things is because there's a difference between, say, like introducing the Dhamma to kids or to anybody really, as opposed to like Buddhism as a religion. Of course, Buddhism is a religion, but it stands alone. I mean, the Buddha himself, and it's helpful to remember that, say, the Buddha didn't teach Buddhism. Buddhism is actually a kind of a made-up kind of concept from, I think, the Victorian era in the English language, as they're coming across these English colonial or imperialists were coming across these different cultures and needed to have names for them. But what the Buddha himself taught was what he said when he referred to what he was teaching was Dhamma Vinaya, this teaching and this training. And so that's if one focuses on teaching in terms of, in similar to what the little story that I told about Ajahn Chah of America. There are no good people in America. Well, because that's really what is important in terms of what is it that's the foundations of kind of goodness, of good qualities, of being a good human being, and that doesn't need to have some Buddhist doctrine laid over it, but it's of course that the Buddha taught all of it in the sense of the foundations of generosity. I say the formula that's usually used as a foundation for teaching within a society or culture is a dana sila bhavana, so that generosity, kindness, kind of unselfishness, integrity, virtue, and some kind of mental training, some kind of cultivation that helps the mind be more aware and settled and centered. So that and I think it's helpful to be able to present those principles to whether it's, say, in this case of sort of young children, nephews, and then or really for the vast majority of us in the world, you're not surrounded by Buddhist society or culture, and that so it's the Buddhist teachings are principles that can be presented without having to have that whole, say, taking on kind of Buddhist jargon, and so another aspect of especially with children, example is so important, to be able to just be a good example, a good model. If one wants somebody to be get interested or to benefit, especially if they're young, because they're not, even if they're young, uh, they're not stupid, and and they see, um, okay, they see adults. I mean, that are. They say one thing and then they do something completely different, and that's okay. You file that away. Okay, I don't know if I can trust these people or not. These beings. So that just being a really good example, and being a good model for what a human being can be. That's a So those are some thoughts on that. And I'll go to here. Let's see. I think first question, I think, is from Patty. Drawing close to spiritual friends are only available on the internet for me now. Accepting this new reality is difficult. You any suggestions for me? Uh, well, I mean, it's I mean, just to recognize that that is the situation. Um, I mean, you can be in a situation where you're far away from others, and kind of complain and grumble and feel kind of feel all sorts of negative feelings. But is that really useful? And that recognizing that there are, because on a certain level, yes, of course, drawing close to good spiritual friends and friendships is I mean, the Buddha places a lot of importance on that, and we know that. But then also, so much of our, how do we relate to people and the outside world is what we're experiencing within our own minds, our own reactions. And because sometimes you can be with a whole, a big group, and I've lived in monasteries for a long time, and I know very well that one can live with all sorts of good people and just get frustrated and irritated and clearly see all their faults and flaws. I mean, that doesn't actually take that much wisdom and intelligence. I mean, but to be able to, um, to pay attention to what we ourselves are creating. Uh, what is the world that we are creating for ourselves, and what kind of world am I creating, and what beings are inhabiting my world? Because on a certain level, I invite them in all the time, and I'm the and you want to be inhabiting your inner world, beings that are benevolent and kind and peaceful and generous and have integrity, and and being able to, and it's highlighting those qualities within oneself, and then noticing that around one, because it's, yeah, I mean, you can look around you and see all sorts of confusion and chaos and negativity, and it's not that it's not there, it's not true, but is that really who I want to inhabit my world with me? um, and and then, of course, um, yeah, there is particularly these days, there is this access to um, spiritual friendships and companions uh, through the internet, and it is a helpful support. So that to rather than sort of bemoaning that and said, oh, it's only virtual. Well, it's as real as we make it within our own hearts, because even when you're with people, you can make that into quite a virtual reality also. So so recognizing we can be making those choices and drawing close to it, uh, um, recognizing the opportunity. Again, it's sort of looking at benefits and drawbacks and the way out. It's a really important way of reflection that the Buddha gave to us 2,500 years ago. Okay. Next question. My brother hurt me, and despite having forgiven him, I don't feel as excited, happy to see him now, and he feels it and is hurt by that. How should I approach this situation? Should I fake enthusiasm? It doesn't feel right to fake being excited, happy to see him if I am not. How would you deal with this? Well, and I think one of the things is to recognize that there's two elements in the sense of there is forgiveness and there's reconciliation, and the two are similar, but they're also a bit different. So that you can forgive somebody, and as in the case of your brother, you can forgive him, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be reconciliation, because there's still probably unresolved issues and a sense of maybe mistrust, and so that the forgiveness can work in terms of that recognition of somebody's flawed character or flawed conduct, and one can forgive them for that in the same way that we should really be doing that for ourselves as well. So that's an act of loving kindness and compassion. But reconciliation takes a bit more work and mutual engagement, so that in order to create trust and a sense of being, say, acknowledged or recognized, then there needs to be some kind of dialogue, of some kind of communication that is both clear and mutually understood, and that's harder work, and so that and it takes patience, it takes kindness, and it takes a willingness on both parts, because sometimes something like with forgiveness, we can resolve something internally for ourselves, and not carry it around, but that doesn't necessarily mean that situation is completely resolved, and there's a bit more work involved with that, and a bit more interaction that needs to be engaged in for that to take root and to be able to feel comfortable with that person or with that situation again. So I think it's sort of starting to explore ways of communication that would result in reconciliation, and to a certain degree, it requires an acknowledgement on the other person's part, and a recognition. So that sometimes, reconciliation is possible. Sometimes it's not, but forgiveness is always available to us, and because that gives us the opportunity to relinquish or set down our own kind of resentments and a feeling of aversion or harming that could be that. So that plotting revenge is it's not a good way to approach forgiveness. So that it doesn't really work so well. But yeah, I would encourage that kind of an ongoing reflection in that way. Oops. Okay, next one. I find my thoughts automatically become antagonistic to anyone I live in close proximity with. Do you have any advice from your experience of living in community? Well, I mean, when you get tired of carrying around negativity and aversion, and see the drawback in that, see the pain involved in that, that's when we start to relinquish it. It doesn't sort of go away just because you say wave a magic wand of meditation and Buddhist principles and all of a sudden everybody around you becomes compliant to your preferences of how you'd like human beings to be. So a lot of it's also recognizing one's own kind of projections, because like aversion has to have an object usually, and that object of aversion is sort of, we are averse because something doesn't comply with our preferences, our ideas, our ideals of how things should be, how people should be, how the world should be. And so and that desire to have things be according to our preference, when it's thwarted, and then we experience frustration, and we've always got good logic for why these people are so irritating, but it usually looks past the fact that we are generating that. We're very much involved in that in that exchange, that we end up being averse to. Maybe Ajahn Karunadhammo, do you have any?
Not really. I think, yeah, it's just being aware of that.
Because we've both been in community for a long time.
Yeah, I do know that the ultimate answer is not getting everybody else to agree with you. not expecting that to happen, and just realizing that our tendencies are, if we're living in an honest relationship with other people, then that's our mirror for seeing what's going on in our own heart. Other people, and the fact that they irritate us is actually just pointing to our own irritation. Right. People can be unskillful and difficult to be with, but we don't have to take it on. But that's the work to do. It doesn't mean, it's not situation for self-judgment. Oh, I wish I weren't such a negative person or something like that. But just realizing that these are conditions that we bring into the world with us from the past, and but that we just have to learn to recognize, as just as Luang Por was saying, it's like the danger, the difficulty, the unpleasantness of it, and just getting tired of doing it and figuring out ways not to.
Great. Okay. Question from Shelley. Are we in a global downturn relative to other times? Ajahn Menindo seems to be comparing these secular times negatively to some previous times, some Elysian sort of time of constant well-being and bliss. I don't know that it ever existed. It is what it is, and even if it is, even if we were in some sort of global downturn, and well, what do we need to do? It's just, and that's the doesn't really matter, and personally, that's the I mean, it's. I remember the good old days when it's just human beings have been sort of kind of kind of mythologizing the good old days for who knows how many thousands of years. And I remember the good old days when we didn't have to do agriculture. We could. I mean, it's the that human tendency, but and as I said, even if we are in some sort of global downturn relative to other times, still, what do we do? How do we approach it? How do we hold it? How do we how do we reflect on it? What conduct is to our benefit? What ways of perceiving and cultivating are necessary? So that's okay. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. There is a response to the forgiveness reconciliation aspect, that sense of the reconciliation part makes a lot of sense. Just wish he wasn't sad about my lack of enthusiasm, and I also wish he didn't lie to me like that all the time. So that's I think that's where it needs to be. That's part of the reconciliation, is making it very clear that it's hard, and there's no point in being sad about lack of enthusiasm when somebody is still engaging in conduct and ways of being that are undermining trust, and so that's and it's not, and it's important that it's not in a judging or blaming way that one articulates that or approaches it, but it's it's just in a, and you have to find the right time, and you have to find the right kind of words of being able to express it. But it could be a really helpful catalyst for say his own growth, and then an opportunity for reestablishing a sense of trust. So that's a reflection. Then it is now 7:46, and we need to be preparing to go off on our alms round. So just send good wishes to everyone. May you be well and happy. Stay tuned. Where are we? I don't know where we are.
This cursor's way at the top.
Where's the cursor?